everyone. Hey, Happy New Year! We're off to an amazing start. It's so good. Yes, Happy New Year and welcome back, everyone. We haven't seen you for a while. This is Elevenses with the reps at Diesel Bookstore. We've been off for the last 3 weeks because we had the holidays, and now it's 2025 and we're on fire. Woo! Like metaphorically and literally, in Los Angeles. But I like unbelievable troopers, everybody who's here today. The show must go on. Another Angelino sentiment as I was texting with Joey this morning to find out, make sure he was okay. And he said, "No, we're on." And I said, "That's right, because that's how we do it here in the book community." If you're joining us for the first time, hey, it's a great day to join us. We get together every Wednesday here on our Crowdcast with our wonderful publishers representatives and our booksellers. And we talk about new, upcoming, and recently released titles that we're excited about and want to share with you, and also events that are happening at our store. And then we have all kinds of, book gossip and rabbit holes that we go down. We post links to all of the books that we talk about today in the chat bar there on the side. You can see, you can click on those now or later and order them from Diesel, or get more information. And of course, we welcome your comments and questions and all of that. So please feel free to go ahead and comment. And I see a lot of really super lovely commentary in the chat box today about wishing us staying safe and all of that. And of course we do, and we're right on the edge of the evacuation zone there, but you know what, we're open. So come on in, especially if you need a place to commiserate and decompress, and have some community with like-minded folks. So that's today, and I'm going to introduce everybody, our troopers, as you can see. I'm going to introduce everybody in a second, but first I do want to tell you about some events that we assume are coming up at the store at Diesel. On Sunday, this Sunday, January 12th at 3 p.m., we're having Robert Craze in the store, and he'll be discussing and signing The Big Empty. That's an Elvis Cole, Joe Pike novel. So super excited. Everybody knows Robert Craves. He's fantastic, friend of the store. And that's going to be on Sunday, this Sunday, the 12th at 3 p.m. And then on Tuesday, January 14th at 6:30 p.m., we're going to be welcoming John Sayles. He'll be at the store discussing and signing To Save the Man. Joey is going to pop up the, there, he did it already. All of the events, you can just click on that. You can see those two events, more details, and then events coming up in the future. So there's that. And Jennifer, I see you're asking about Tom. Yes, Tom is actually needed to, he's on the East Coast actually, right now. So he's not anywhere near, and he is not unwell, but he was not able to be here today. And so Julia Callahan from Hachette is really a trooper. She's in her car because she has no power, but she is such a professional, filling in for Tom Benton today, that she is there in her car doing Elevenses. Thank you, Julia. Really above and beyond. Joining us.
Happy to do it.
Yeah. Will Gawronski from Columbia University Press Consortium. We're really happy to see you, Will. And the lovely Kelsey, our bookseller from Brentwood Diesel, is also with us. And behind the scenes, Joey, really doing it over there, and posting all the links and keeping it all together. So why don't we just get started on that happy note? Julia, why don't you lead us off?
Sure thing. Happy to. I am starting off with a big one. We have a big early pub for a literary fiction novel. This is Mothers and Sons by Adam Hazlitt. And you might know him. In 2016, he published a book called Imagine Me Gone that did extremely well with indie bookstores, and indie booksellers absolutely loved it. Mothers and Sons, no different. It's already gotten starred reviews from Publishers Weekly, Kirkus, Booklist, and is an indie next pick for this month of January. This one, much like Imagine Me Gone, is a family drama. This one in particular is about a mother and a son. And when the son is younger and living with the mother, there is an act of violence that happens in their household, and sort of how this act of violence pushes them apart, and then how they come back together years later. He will make you laugh and cry and tug at your heartstrings and do all the things a great book does. I feel like it's only a matter of time before he wins a big literary prize. Imagine Me Gone was nominated, was a finalist for the Pulitzer. And I'm assuming this one will have some great awards traction as well when we get into award season later in the year. But yeah, Mothers and Sons by Adam Hazlitt, just a phenomenal novel and a great start to 2025.
Been so looking forward to this. It's Indie Next. Did you say that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I missed it.
It's
Yeah.
okay.
It's also an indie next pick, which is also a big deal for me personally, and I think other indie booksellers, because that means that we've been reading it ahead of publication, and enough indie booksellers across the country have voted for it, and I've been super excited for this one to go on sale. I think it's going to do amazing. So great themes, I think, really diving in to. So happy to see a literary novel with so much enthusiasm behind it. So really, really looking forward to this one. So a great lead off. Thanks, Julia. Will, let's pop over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here again. It's been a little bit. So my first book is an Elevenses repeat for me. It's a book I talked about last fall, but I didn't have a copy of it then, and I do now. So it's one of my favorites also. So I want to say
it's a gorgeous book.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah.
So it's George Cukor's People, Acting for a Master Director by Joseph McBride, and I love this book. So Joseph McBride, just to tell you, so he is this fantastic writer. He lives up in the Bay Area, and he has written a number of books. We've published a few at Columbia on directors of sort of the Hollywood golden age. So he did a book on Ernst Lubitsch a few years ago that got great reviews, and then he did one more recently on Billy Wilder that was a big hit. So this one is one of the first books on Cukor in a while, because although George Cukor had this very long career and won many awards and directed many, many, many actors in performances where they won Oscars and other tributes, some of their best performances, there hasn't been a lot really written about him as sort of an auteur director, because he did such a variety of films. He did romantic comedies, he did heavy dramas, he did historical epics, all of this kind of thing. So it's hard to find a thread to talk about him the way you can some other directors. But what McBride does is he looks at the thing that made Cukor unique was his ability to work with actors and to pull these performances out of them that other people couldn't get. So the book is organized more or less chronologically, but each chapter is on a specific performance or a group of performances within a film, and how he got this out of the performers in the movie. And I thought it was such an original way to do this. And it's so insightful. And if you know these films, or if you don't know these films, but you think you might want to watch them, this is such a great book to read, to dip into that chapter and see what you're going to be seeing or what you've seen, and give you an appreciation for it. The cover image that's Cukor in the white, directing Katharine Hepburn sitting down, and Cary Grant there. That's Sylvia Scarlett. He directed Katharine Hepburn, I think, more than any other director in maybe 10 or 11 films, something like that, including her very first film, Bill of Divorcement, and one of her later films with Laurence Olivier, Love Among the Ruins. So the book has, I'll just hold it up for a second to give you an idea. illustrations throughout. Here's him directing Maggie Smith in one of her earlier films, one of his later films in the 70s. Here is Katharine Hepburn and Jimmy Stewart in a scene from the Philadelphia Story, one of their more popular movies. Here's Ingrid Bergman in Charles Boyer and Gaslight. There's this fantastic chapter on that.
One of my favorites. I love that movie so much. Yeah.
So good. So there's this chapter that he writes under him directing both Ingrid Bergman and Angela Lansbury in that movie. And that was Angela Lansbury's first part. If you've ever seen the movie, she plays that she was a teenager when he cast her in this, and she plays the sort of trampy Cockney maid in the part.
So good. It's so good. Everybody should watch that movie. It's fantastic.
It's great. And there's this picture that I could show you here. That's one of the scenes where she's sort of flirting with Charles Boyer, the master of the house. And Cukor said that it was the most amazing thing to direct Angela Lansbury in that part, because he said her face physically changed. She said she looked different, like part of her face kind of dropped down and she looked kind of half asleep as she did the performance, but it was just so perfect for what he was trying to get out of her. So anyway, the book is just wonderful. If you're a film fan or know a film fan and you're still looking to pick something up as a late holiday gift, I really recommend it. It came out in November, so it's still pretty fresh, and I think it's a great book.
I'm really glad you're talking about it, because I think it got in the holiday shuffle. It maybe got lost a little bit, and I remember being excited about it when you first were talking about it, and we got into a big film discussion. We're all film buffs here. Julia's been nodding vigorously while you've been talking. I follow Will's what he's watching on what movies he's watching, because he's such great old and interesting and unusual movie taste. So when Will talks about a book that involves old movies and great directors, and I always listen. This is such a fascinating book, worth it for the Gaslight alone. But did you notice, like, Angela Lansbury, her first role, she was a teenager, she already looked like she was 57.
Yeah. Exactly.
So a really great book. I'm glad you're talking about it again. A fantastic gift for anybody. It doesn't have to be tied to the holidays. If you can put it down yourself for long enough to give it to someone. Thanks, Will.
Mm-hmm.
Kelsey.
All right. It wouldn't be an Elevenses if I didn't do a children's book.
Yay!
So I'm going to start off with one by Owen Colfer, who's one of my favorite. I loved his Artemis Fowl middle reader series growing up. And this is one called Beanie the Banshee. And it's definitely a little bit of a, I know it's a really fantastic title to begin with. And it's about a banshee who, when she's born, before she can connect with her human that she's supposed to basically follow around until someday the human is about to die, and then she has to scream in the human face. She falls off the bridge that she's born on, and she gets washed away. And so she doesn't make this connection with this little girl that she's supposed to connect with. But she follows the little girl around, and finally she realizes that the little girl is in danger. But she realizes, because she never made the connection with her, that she can't scream at her to warn her that she's in danger. So she has to figure out another way to warn this girl that her house is going to flood. And she ends up singing, and the little girl can hear the singing, and they make this connection. And then it's just like a lovely, delightful story. There is a little bit of talk of death. And there's a good amount of words on a lot of the pages. So it is certainly like a slightly advanced picture book. And some of the illustrations are a little bit like, they're fantastic illustrations, but a lot of them are a little bit in like a darker vein. But it's just really, really lovely, beautiful to look at. Lovely story about this little girl and the relationship with the Banshee. It's really fantastic. So we've got copies at the store, right in the kids section.
I love this. This is amazing. Yeah. I haven't seen this book. This is incredible. The Irish, Irish kids.
Yes. Yeah.
Get them ready.
So good. Yes,
I love
exactly.
I don't think anybody, everyone's heard the term, but I don't think they really understand what banshees are. So, or where it
Right.
comes from, right? So this is fantastic on that level. Also, like, a great type of sort of folklore interpretation, which is hugely popular with, the kids and their parents right now and has been for a while. So, but
Right.
this is stunning. It's a really beautiful book.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And there's a nice little like description at the beginning about what banshees are and stuff like that before it gets into the cute little tale. So yeah, really, really
Perfect.
fun, great illustrations. Yeah, the delight.
All right. Well, I need to pick one up for myself. I love this book.
Yes,
Um,
find one at the store.
thanks, Kelsey. All right, Julia, back to you.
Okay, cool. Well, my next one is a music book. It's called Before Elvis: The African American Musicians Who Made the King. This one also has a starred review in Booklist. And this one I think is so amazing, such an amazing history of rock and roll. It's got never before published interviews with people like Big Mama Thornton and Bonnie Raitt, talking about these Black musicians who um, generously inspired Elvis. I would say that there was maybe some theft of their
You,
music
you think?
there somewhere. Yeah. And so, but really follows these four different musicians: Little Junior Parker, Big Mama Thornton, Arthur Big Boy Crudup, and this basically unknown Beale Street guitarist Calvin Newborn. And it's really talks about how Calvin Newborn, his style was really what Elvis took from, but is a sort of great history, a great, if you're a music fan, which I am. I went through a big Elvis phase when I was younger. And this is such a, I don't know, I think such a great history, and one to really dig your teeth into. I think it's important to learn about this stuff and to think about this stuff when it comes to music, and the way in which, you know, music has been sort of stolen from other musicians and stuff like that. I think that this is a really phenomenal book. And this author actually also wrote a book called The Chitlin Circuit,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty great.
It's a
So
really
he's,
great book. That was a
yeah,
fantastic book. Yeah.
yeah. So he's a well-known music writer, and is really, yeah, he's really wonderful. This is a wonderful book, and I highly, highly recommend it.
So Will is to movies like Julia is to music. So, and I've gotten a lot of great leads from Julia on this kind of thing, and we love talking about it. I have the connection. I have, related to people who teach these things, and very involved in it. And it's so interesting. And I have looked through this book. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I've looked through it because, of course, as soon as I saw it, it grabbed my eye. And it's great. It's so interesting. And I think, if you know a little bit about this already, or if it's like completely new to you, either way, it's going to be really involving and interesting if you've got any interest in, any of these things, as related to music. Who doesn't? I mean, music and film, right? So a terrific book. And the previous book was fantastic as well. So, excellent. Thanks, Julia. All right, Will, back to you.
That does look really great. So excited about that. So my next book, I'm going to stay on the film thing a little bit longer. So this is also a Columbia book, also from last fall, but I wanted to point out because I now have a copy. So this is Mary C. McCall Jr., The Rise and Fall of Hollywood's Most Powerful Screenwriter. Another great book about, this is somebody I'd never heard of. And she was this incredibly interesting woman who was, as the subtitle says, like the most powerful screenwriter of her moment, and certainly the most powerful woman figure behind the scenes in Hollywood for a long time. She was from New York, in kind of an affluent Irish Catholic family, went to Vassar and wanted to be a novelist, and did write a novel that was actually optioned by Paramount, I think, and they made it into a film. And in working on the adaptation of that, they decided to sign her on to be a screenwriter, and that's how her career began as a screenwriter. So her most sort of popular period in her own writing was in the 30s and 40s. She did a film called Maisie in the late 1930s, which I've never seen, but it was supposed to originally star Jean Harlow, and then Jean Harlow died. So it starred Ann Southern, and the character of Maisie is sort of this big-hearted New York, like Brooklyn burlesque dancer who's now kind of like having all these adventures in different places. There was a whole series of these. They were hugely popular all throughout the 40s. And they're like fish out of water stories. And one of them, she goes to work in a munitions plant during the war. Another one, she's like in Reno and meets cowboys and all of that. So it's that kind of a thing. But behind the scenes, McCall was just this really proponent for labor organizing, and also a big advocate for writers and what they deserve. She was extremely well connected. She was very close friends with Betty Davis and James Cagney and Humphrey Bogart from her time at Warner Brothers, where she spent a lot of her career. She also was a friend of Eleanor Roosevelt, and she was a big proponent for the sort of FDR ideas of the 1940s. And she was very strongly in favor of America entering the war against Germany, for some time before we did. So fascinating story, a real dynamo of a person. You can see her smoking her pipe on the cover of it. Julia wrote about giving tours at Paramount, and there's a funny Paramount thing in here that I wanted to share. So in the early 40s, when she was at a labor organizing meeting, there was a man from Paramount, this kind of terrifying executive named Y, the initial Y, Franklin Freeman. And it was the two of them discussing like what labor organizing was going to be, if it was good or bad. And he went on this tirade about how this is terrible. It's going to destroy the industry. There won't be any films. It'll all be coming from somewhere else. We're shooting ourselves in the foot, and just went on and on and on about this. And he got to the end, and it was her turn to say something. She said, "So is why Franklin Freeman a rhetorical question?" Isn't that funny? And then went from there to talk about the importance of labor unions and how it was really going to, solidify the talent industry that they all relied on. So just this incredibly interesting person. She did get in trouble with the blacklisters, as you would imagine, and that's the fall part of the story. But she had a long career, and she ended up later in her years writing for television in the 60s and a little beyond that. So great book and interesting person.
So interesting. Never heard of her either. But I think just looking at that cover, you can imagine who she got in trouble with, I think.
Yeah.
Right? You can see it. It just draws you right in and want to know more about her. So so interesting. Couple of great ones, Will. Really exploring some unknown entertaining corners there. Thank you. Kelsey.
All right. My second book, possibly at some point, someone's talked about this on here before. It came out 4 or 5 years ago, but I was trying to think of books to do today, and we have a display in the store right now that says "Ease Your Mind," which is just trying to be books because a lot of people are coming in asking for books that, sort of aren't sad, aren't upsetting, aren't violent, aren't, and so anyway, it's The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I actually read it pretty recently, but it came out 4 or 5 years ago. But it follows a guy named Linus Baker who works as a caseworker for the department in charge of magical youth. And he is given the daunting task of having to go to this island where there's an orphanage that houses 6 of the most dangerous magical children. And as you can expect, since these children are housed in orphanages and et cetera, magical people in this universe are not treated equally in comparison to regular humans. And so he has to go to this orphanage and decide whether these 6 dangerous children are as dangerous as they are reported to be, and if it's safe for them to be at this orphanage, and if the orphanage is working out And when he gets there, he meets like, they're just like, I can't describe how much I loved all of these dangerous children. I didn't know I could love a green blob with like antenna eyes so much. There's a child named Lucy who is supposed to be the Antichrist. His father is the devil. There's a sprite who can just manipulate nature. There's a garden gnome who is still a child in quotes because she's 324 years old, which is young for a garden gnome. And she's constantly making threats to bury bodies in her garden. But anyway, so Linus gets there and he's sort of fearful about this and not sure, and he's trying to be very professional. And of course, the children and the orphanage owner end up sort of winning him over. And then he has to go back to the government agency and give his full report on the kids. And I will leave that for you to find out what happens. But it is just so beautiful and heartwarming. And I feel like we kind of need a story right now that shows empathy and love and caring. And I mean, there are moments in it that are very frustrating. They take the kids to the town that's across from the island, and some terrible things happen because the people in the town aren't nice. But the overarching feeling of this book is just, it's so beautiful and heartwarming, and I loved it. So pick it up if you need a read like that.
I'm not sure that we have talked about this before on Elevenses,
Okay,
although I feel like it's been around forever, but that just goes to show we've been doing Elevenses for over 5 years. Can you believe it? And it's been a store favorite for a long time, and it just keeps going. And so I appreciate you talking about it, actually, because and then there's 2 more, right?
There's one more, which is actually the other book I'm going to talk about. There's a second one.
Okay.
And then there's separate. But I mean, read anything by T.J. Klune in general.
Right.
Like you
right.
should.
It's
In the Lives of Puppets.
It's a big event
like,
now. And I remember when this came out, and it was like almost like an instant sort of hit, and I think it appealed to everybody. For all of the reasons that you talked about, sort of thematically, and just it being sort of magical, but also, positive, and sort of affirming and that kind of thing without being, I think it's sort of, Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of similar to, oh no, I'm completely blanked out on the title. This is what happens. Your favorite one, Joey, that you talk about, with the robot.
Home for the Wild Bill. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Joey.
It absolutely has, the same feeling.
Same vibe,
yes.
right? Some for the Wild Bill. Thank you, Joey. Yeah, and I think that's why it has struck such a chord with people. So
I think both are topical, but also magical. So it's not like in your face, hitting you over the head topical,
right?
Which I think is important.
Exactly. Cozy fantasy on the upswing. Did we ever think we would be talking about that kind of subgenre? Hey, excellent. Thanks, Kelsey. All right, Julia.
Okay. I also chose a kid's book for my next book because this one is so fun that I could not talk about it. This is called Soy Sauce by Laura G. Lee. This is an Indie Next pick and has a starred Kirkus review. And this book is an utter delight. It is literally about soy sauce. It talks about how soy sauce is made, what different kinds of soy sauces there are. There's Japanese, Chinese, and Korean soy sauces and why they're different and how they're made different. And then what is the coolest part is if you see anything that's painted in brown, and it's this way throughout the book, was all painted with soy sauce. So the author illustrator Laura G. Lee, really it's an ode to soy sauce. I feel like a great gift book going into the Lunar New Year, a great sort of book if you have kids that love pan-Asian cuisine, and are eating different kinds of things, or if you just want to learn about soy sauce. It's really fun. So yeah, I just can't say enough good things about what a delight this book is.
It's just so adorable. This is just the most adorable book ever. And I just think that on that basis alone, it's worth checking out. I've seen it, and you're absolutely right. It is delightful. It's really such a cute book. Illustrations are like super fun, and you're right. It's a great book. So, and I haven't seen anything really like it.
Yeah, same.
You know, at least recently. So I think it's a great standout in a crowded field. So yeah, excellent. And we love talking about kids' books. So I'm really glad you all have kids' books you're talking about today. So thanks, Julia. Will, back to you.
What a great cover. It makes me happy just looking at it.
Exactly.
Like,
That's it. It's really delightful. It's so cute inside too. It's the cutest book.
I'll bet. So no connection to that, except just that I have an attractive book next too. And this is one I've also done in the past on Elevenses from last fall, but I now have finished one. This is Basho, the collected haiku. This is from University of California Press, and it is a really just a gorgeous book. It's $26.95. It came out in September, I think. So still, relatively new, and, a classic book to have or to give at any time. So UC Press did a paperback edition of this. This is translated by Andrew Fitzsimmons, who's probably one of the leading experts. Well, he is one of the leading experts on Basho in the world. So they did a paperback, which is just the English translations. It's a slim little book, and I think it's $16.95 or $15.95 that Diesel has carried. And this is a sort of deluxe edition. So in addition to, it's the same poems, all of them together, but in addition to the English, he also has the Japanese written there as well. And then each poem, each haiku has an annotation about when it was written, if there's notes about what was intended to be, like some of the themes of it, how it's been interpreted, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of wonderful material. And of course, the English or the Japanese characters are just really great if you read Japanese characters, but not even if you don't. I mean, it just adds so much to the beauty of the book itself. So it's unjacketed. It's got like the sort of cloth spine. It has the nice kind of two-tone cover like that, and it has the nice ribbon to keep your place. So just a really beautiful gift edition, $26.95 and around now.
Like Joey says over here, that the pictures don't do it justice, and that is absolutely correct. That is absolutely a gorgeous book, and Will had this at the trade show when we went, and everybody was swarming it, and was picking it up and looking at it and wanting it. And we sold a bunch of them over the holidays, and people were picking them up as gifts. It's absolutely stunning. A really, really wonderful, gorgeous book, and sells itself.
Yeah.
Although if you haven't seen it before, it's true. Really check it out, pick it up, and you'll want it, because it really is a stunning book. It's like its own little work of art. So thank you, Will. Sure. All right, bonus round, everybody. Yay. Kelsey, lead us off on the bonus round.
Also, I will also confirm that the Basho book is beautiful. I've picked it up many times in store. Yes, like I said, my third book is the sequel to House on the Cerulean Sea, which is Somewhere Beyond the Sea. I am actually in the middle of reading it, but I wanted to talk about it because it's just also fantastic. Definitely in a bit of a different vein from House on the Cerulean Sea, going in a little bit of a different direction. It's following more Arthur Parnassus, who is the magical man who runs the orphanage on the island. And he has to go to the big city to testify in front of the government about having been housed in a magical orphanage as a child, and now running this orphanage as well. And so it's a big deal because the hope is that his testimony can reverse some or all of the laws and rules surrounding magical folk. But of course, there are people who are for it, there are people who are against it. He gets to the courthouse and there's, protests on both sides. And then he has to go in and, it's a courtroom full of people, but really just these 4 government people that he has to sway, to change their understanding of magical folk and who they are. And then along with that storyline, he is also trying to adopt the children at the orphanage on the island, while also trying to bring in a new magical child whose name is David, and David is a Yeti. So all of these sort of storylines are coming together and trying to, but again, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, it's infuriating and heartwarming, and I can't wait to finish it. I'm going to keep reading it today. But like I said earlier, pick up anything by TJ Klune. It's just wonderful.
And there are a couple of other TJ Klune that were in the middle, I think, that are also super popular and people are really enjoying it.
Yeah.
Somewhere Beyond the Sea, I didn't know at all, so I'm glad you were talking about it because I'm not.
Yeah.
Oh, Joey says, yeah, there's a new book coming out in February as well. So they keep going, which is terrific. Yeah. So excellent. Thank you, Kelsey. All right, Julia, your last book.
Okay, so this is also a kid's book. My next book is called Go Tell It, How James Baldwin Became a Writer. And this is just absolutely beloved already. It's got starred Publishers Weekly, Kirkus and School Library Journal review. It's hard to overstate how beautiful the artwork in this book is. We have like images of it, and then I got sent like a blad, which is like kind of the galley copy of a kid's book, and I looked through it and it's so gorgeous. The artwork in this is so gorgeous, and it is the story of how James Baldwin came to be a writer. It talks about his time in Paris, and sort of what he discusses in his writing, but in a way that kids can understand and get excited about. And it's got these gorgeous illustrations of places like Harlem and of Paris, and libraries and all of these great spots. So this one is a really fantastic one. I can't recommend it highly enough. February is Black History Month, so if you have kids that you're in your life that you're trying to educate about Black history, this is a great sort of book to hand off to them.
And writing,
and writing,
absolutely.
Yeah,
gorgeous, beautiful artwork in this book as well. Lovely. Thank you, Julia.
Yeah.
And thanks for doing so many kids books today. That's awesome. All right, Will, you're gonna wrap us up for the day.
Okay. So I don't actually have a kids book to talk about last, but I will say that James Baldwin book looks really beautiful. My last book is a Duke University Press book, and years ago now, it's probably been 6 or 7 years ago, Duke published an edition of James Baldwin's children's book called Little Man that he wrote in the 70s, that had been unavailable for a while. It's a beautiful book and it's still around, and I get backlist orders for it all the time. So that, and the look of Julia's book is kind of similar to the illustrations of that book. So I think that Julia's book's going to be a big hit.
Yeah.
So in University Press world, we have 2 sale seasons. We have a fall season and a spring season, and I'm just about to start selling the spring season. So my last book is a book that I haven't talked about yet with any bookstore, so you won't have heard of this. But I suspect this is going to be a big indie bookstore hit. It's called, wait for it, The Witch Studies Reader from Duke University Press. Wait for the cover,
Ooh,
right?
okay. I need this already.
So
Kelsey's clapping.
it's a collection of writing. It's going to be a paperback for $29.95. It's a great big thing. It's 500 pages. And I'll tell you honestly, it is like there's a pretty good academic sort of scholarly element to this, but it's very readable and totally fascinating. So it's people from all over the world writing about the concept of witches today and looking at it from a feminist perspective and from sort of a, in terms of the history of colonialism and decolonialism as well. So it goes in many different directions. It's mostly not historical. So there's a little bit about the witch hunts of earlier centuries, but mostly it's about things of the last 100 years. So to give you an example of what's in it, like there's a piece on Appalachian folk magic and how it's related to folk medicine there. There's a piece on Irish witchcraft and how it's related to trauma and violence in Ireland, related to many different things, especially in Northern Ireland. There's a piece on the killing of people who've been perceived as witches in recent years in places like Tanzania and in India. There's stuff on transgender witches and the practice of that and what binds people together as a community. There's a really, I thought, sweet piece on fortune telling in Italy and how that is sort of seen as a type of witchcraft, but also it's this thing that's very important to the community of women because they get together and they have their fortune told, but they also kind of exchange stories and talk about their lives and families. And so it's that kind of a thing too. There's a piece on 60s counterculture in the US and the creation of what they call the witchy diva, which you think of as like a Stevie Nicks type figure,
right? Exactly.
And how that's influenced popular culture. It's incredibly interesting and so varied. And I think it's just got something for everybody. It's going to be a real hit this season. It doesn't come out for a while, so it'll be out in late March.
I need my copy now.
I think you can get a digital galley through Edelweiss if you want to take a peek.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
I don't even have anything physical to show anybody yet, but I'll be talking about it again and again, I'm sure, this over the next couple of months.
Yeah, definitely. You must next time you come back. This just looks fantastic. I mean, both Kelsey and I want this book for sure. And Julia probably wants it too. Everybody wants it. And that's a great way to end. I love it. I actually really like the scholarly aspect of it also. Learning more about it really on a deeper level is great. And there was a book, and of course I can't remember the title of it now. I will when it's too late. It'll come back to me. But there was recently a memoir by a transgender witch, which was really, really good. And I can't remember the title, but okay, next week. I'll dig it out. It was recent as well. And on that note, for anyone who needs more Wicked in their lives, exactly, Julia, thank you. Perfect. On that note, we will wrap up our first Elevenses of the new year. It's really been interesting. We're off to a very interesting start. But of course, we have great books and a great community to go with it. And so I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Everybody who's joined us and is watching, and especially Will Gawronski from Columbia University Press. Julia Callahan, just really doing it in your car. Julia, stay safe. Kelsey from Diesel Bookstore, and Joey behind the scenes, and everybody else who's watching, who's in the danger zone, please stay safe. Go if they tell you to go. Don't wait. And just a tiny little PSA. If you don't have it already, Watch Duty is a great app. And download that because it's like the most up-to-date information about where fires are and where everybody's evacuating to and who needs to go. So on that happy note, everybody stay safe, be careful. We will be back next week with more books, more wonderful reps, and more great discussion. So until then, we will see you all soon. Bye, everyone.